Welcome to Healthcare IT Today. I'm John Lynn, together with my colleague and friend, Colin Hung. The world of technology and healthcare, ever-changing in new and novel ways, and that's why we love this stuff. So join us as we discuss the latest healthcare and health IT news, meshed together in new ways which help generate ideas and new perspectives. Plus, we'll have a little fun along the way. Today, we're going to be having a little fun ourselves, where Colin and I are going to answer the questions that we're asking other people at HIMSS. And be sure to follow the show on social media at the hashtag HITSM and our personal accounts at TechGuy and at Colin_Hung. Plus, check out our 20 years of health IT content at healthcareittoday.com. Colin, what's your prediction on number of videos we're going to record, interviews, discussion videos with people at HIMSS?
Well, it's going to be well north of 100, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You're taking the over on 100?
Yeah, I would say my guess is 167.
Oh, I think we're going to be around 100. I think that's my prediction.
You think?
Maybe slightly over. We'll see. It depends.
Right.
Depends on how many we add at the last minute. It's going to be fun, though.
Yeah, it's always fun to go to HIMSS, and it's always fun to be here in Vegas. As you can see, I'm in my hotel room for those of you watching the video, so I'm excited to be here and getting all set up and everything, so it's going to be a good time. Going to be a good time. So yeah, it's going to be a fun one, John. We're going to be asking each other the questions that we're posing to people we're meeting at HIMSS. So yeah, this is going to be, I'm interested in your take, actually. So let's just get right into it. The first question, John, for you, what is a mistake that we keep making in healthcare?
Yeah, the one that really popped up into my mind was it's in some ways it's a tech cycle that happens over and over. And so I don't know if it's even avoidable. I don't know if we can really address it. I think we just need to be aware of it. But that is that we're going to choose too many systems. We're going to implement too many software. And, we did that before the EHR became the all-in-one EHR that could work for everything and do lab and pharmacy and check-in and EHR and practice management and everything else, right? Billing, et cetera, analytics. Like it eventually grew into that. But before that, you had one lab system and one pharmacy system, one, radiology, et cetera, right? And so I think we're going to go through that exact same thing, right? It's a mistake in many ways because we don't want to have 100 AI systems, but we might because there's so many opportunities available for AI that a lot of these, especially larger health systems, are going to want to implement and get the value out of these AI systems. And there's not going to just be one vendor. You can't just go to ChatGPT and be like, okay, let's implement ChatGPT for a revenue cycle and for radiology and for pharmacy and for everything that that we need to do for clinical documentation. So unfortunately, that's a mistake I think is going to happen. Some people may pull back, but then they're going to miss out on the opportunities that are available with AI if they do. So it really is a conundrum of a choice.
Wow. I like that. And you're probably right. I mean, we tend to go, we wave and pendulum between best of breed and all in one, right? Like Right now we're in the swing towards fewer vendors because that's harder to manage, too many vendors. So I'm totally with you that maybe we might overcorrect, right? And try to do everything in one when in fact maybe multiple solutions might be a better one. For me, John, I'm going to a classic. I think healthcare continues to make the mistakes of underinvesting in cybersecurity. That's a mistake we've just kept on making. We keep on making. I think for the most part, our SaaS systems and our applications are fairly well secured. But now we've got all these connected devices. We've got things in patients' rooms. We've got people bringing their own devices into the healthcare systems as well. So I just think the threats keep getting bigger. They're getting smarter. And we just chronically in healthcare invest in the technologies and the know-how and the skills to protect against these cybersecurity threats. And also, I would say training, right? Like forgetting about the spending of money of new technology, even just the training of, people at the front lines, what to and not to click on, how to detect a phishing attack or not, right? Like those kinds of things, we just don't do it very well in healthcare.
Yeah. Now it's interesting. You add in all the generative AI stuff and people slapping in health data that's PHI into non-HIPAA compliant systems. So, that expands it as well. What can people do to address it though? That's the challenge. I mean, I think that more boards have been more open to investing in cybersecurity, but it's a hard problem to deal with. There's so many points of vulnerability with every person now that they're really compromising the person's credential rather than compromising the system these days, and that's such a
Yeah,
hard problem.
it is, but I think at the risk of giving someone an idea, you know, there should be some sort of index that says, hey, you plug in this data, how many devices, what kinds of devices, something like that. Like, and then here's the applications you're running. And it should spit back, by the way, if you've got all these systems and this is the size of your organization in terms of people, you should be really spending this much in cybersecurity. Right? Like, just to give you a frame as to whether or not you're even close to what, that should be, right? Like, and we can take examples from finance, we can take examples from other industries and go, okay, like in general, this is kind of what we should be spending.
Yeah. The other mistake that I think that I see happening, and I think is going to happen quite a bit, is the shiny object syndrome. Like, I think there's going to be quite a few provider organizations that implement vendors because it just comes in so shiny, and they're going to miss the fact that it didn't align with their strategic priority, or maybe it was a pilot. And then after the pilot, they're like, wait, this doesn't actually solve something that we really want solved, or we didn't measure it, or we didn't whatever, right? And so there's going to be some chasing of that cool technology, and there's some really cool technology happening right now, but maybe it doesn't quite hit the strategic priority of the organization, and that becomes problematic.
I agree with you. And actually, on that topic, John, let's get to the next question. What do you think is the most important lesson that we have learned or should have learned now that AI is kind of everywhere in healthcare?
Yeah, for me, the one that came to mind was the data matters a lot. Like, having high quality data that you trust, and the data that you feed into these AI systems will influence the results. It will influence how many hallucinations it has. It will influence all of those things. And often it's about high quality small data as opposed to the big data. Now, we've seen the opposite is true as well. The large LLMs that are basically taking the entire body of language across the internet, right? They do pretty well as well. They might hallucinate a bit more, but they do actually, in some ways, they're more powerful than the small one for abstract things or complicated things that go across multiple comorbidities, or that have some weird side effects or lab results that maybe are really edge use cases. It turns out those large LLMs actually can do pretty good on that. But for most use cases in healthcare, using good data to then enable the AI, I think, is probably the lesson we've learned the most. So if your data is junk and it's pulling junk data, or maybe it just doesn't even have access to your data because it was done in a paper chart that was archived to an old system that now isn't accessible to the AI, right? Those types of things, they become problematic when you're trying to address it. But if you give it the right data, then you get much better results.
That's a good one. Can't argue with you there. Data is so important. I think our friends over at Clinical Architecture, Charlie, would definitely agree with good quality data is the foundation for a lot of things, not just AI, right? But just good decision making, LLMs, of course. I think that's a good one. For me, ironically, I think the lesson that we should be learning is that AI is everywhere. And I think we need to, as provider organizations and as vendors, really need to start asking the question of our partners and of course of the vendors themselves, where have you deployed AI and why? Because it's now baked into almost everything in the sense of, you could be inadvertently using AI to do something. Like, you just may not know there's some AI back behind there, prioritizing a list or making decisions based on some sort of your user profile, right? It changed, maybe I'm just spitballing here, but the whole thing where you can personalize your user interface. Well, with AI now that can sit behind there and memorize, you tend to be clicking here. Maybe I'll just move this window, right? Like, all that kind of stuff is now baked into a lot of software. So I think as vendors and I think as providers and as customers, we need to just be aware that it's everywhere and ask the question, hey, like, where has it been deployed? Where have you really added this? Just so I'm aware. I think in most cases it's fine, but it's good to be aware where it is used. At least
Yeah.
in terms of until we really fully can trust these things, to do some of the day-to-day stuff.
Well, and it also hits something that we talked about on a previous episode around cost. Like cost
Yeah.
is influencing where people use it or don't use it as well. Because depending on the cost of it determines, you have to look at what's the value that's created. And if there's not value created that's, complementary or at least ahead of that cost, then that's a problem for that AI too.
Yeah. Well, and the example that my mind went to, in this is somebody who might be outsourcing their call centers to someone else, and the organization might think, oh, it's all to people, when in fact there's an AI component to this where it's doing the filtering up front, the triaging up front, which again, it might be okay. That's not saying anything wrong with that, but you don't want to be caught, either side be caught in where there's a mismatch in an assumption like that. So I think we train ourselves. That's the lesson for me, is we just need to train ourselves to ask that question.
Yep, that's true.
Well, cool. We're motoring through. And hey, listen, to all of you who are just tuning in, you're listening to Healthcare IT Today with John Lynn and Colin Hung. Today, we are asking each other the questions that we're asking of our interviewees at the annual 2026 HIMSS conference. All right, those are some good ones, John. But this next one is definitely right up your alley. And that is, John, what healthcare policy has been implemented or that you wish were implemented would get your thumbs up right now?
Yeah, I got a couple to think about. Probably the one that stands out the most to me is information blocking. Like, I think it has such wide ranging implications, and it's forcing the right conversations, if you will. And certainly there's multiple sides to it as far as, should we be sharing? Should we not? As someone who generally thinks you should share and probably err on the side of sharing too much is what most people want, and that's kind of my perspective on it. I think information blocking pushes that forward. And I think that's been a really good thing. And even just the conversations that information blocking has forced us to have been really valuable and interesting and useful to understand. Oh yeah, there are some times where it could be dangerous to share, right? That's good to know too. But having those conversations has really pushed forward this. Now, where that plays out in the legal space and things like that, that's going to be interesting to watch. So we'll see. But I think that's the policy that I think has been really interesting. And then I'll throw another one that I'm still just learning about, but it's the team one, transforming episode accountability model. There's a lot of people starting to talk about it. And this is why I think they're talking about it. It's because it's tied to reimbursement. So I think there's a fair bit of money available if you do team. And so I think every organization, kind of like you had to do meaningful use and MIPS eventually. And you had to do those kind of things because you needed it for reimbursement. I'm still learning about team. I'm not an expert on this. I've had a few experts on Healthcare IT Today, a great one with Point Click Care with Bonnie Roberts. She did a great job, and we did some stuff with real-time medical systems on this. So we've done some good content at Healthcare IT Today if you search that. But to me, it seems like an exciting opportunity to generate more revenue for provider organizations. And we know that's an important focus for pretty much every provider organization out there.
Yeah, hey, those are both good. Although I haven't really read up a lot about the teams stuff, so now I'm going to have to go read up on it. But that's interesting. I mean, anything to do with reimbursement, we know is going to get it's going to be polarizing. It's going to get a thumbs up from half the people and a thumbs down from the other half, depending on where you land. For me, I've got one, well, two maybe. They're both funding related, by the way.
Oh,
the one I'm interested in right now, and it does get my thumbs up, even though the reason for it might not have been great, and that's the rural healthcare funding that's just been announced, right? The $50 billion that's going to be funneled over to the rural healthcare. I know it's not a great why they had to do it because they decreased Medicare and Medicaid right on one hand, but they boosted it here. But I think in general, rural healthcare has been ignored, right? So the fact that it's getting some love, it's getting some funding, there's still a lot to figure out as to what funds you can and cannot use, what you can or cannot use it for, and how you apply for them. Like there's a lot of stuff still needs to be worked out, but principally, I look at that and go, hey, that's not bad. Rural healthcare has been ignored. It does cause a big problem when the nearest hospital is several hundred miles away. That's not a good thing. So, and they continue to close at a pretty high clip. So that one's one that gets my sort of tentative thumbs up.
The I'm hearing some of what you said though, right? Where they're like, hey, that's great. You gave us 50 billion, but you cut $1 trillion from our reimbursement. So this is a challenge, right? That doesn't do the math. I'm interested to know where they spend the 50 billion, right? I mean, I compare it to the 36 billion of meaningful use, and I'm like, 50 billion, that's a lot of money, right? But how is it going to be spent? Is it going to be spent on CT scanners? Is it going to be spent on bandwidth? Is it going to be spent on IT? Is it going to be spent on people so that you can keep service lines open? And from what I understand, every state's going to be different. So that's its own interesting approach that they gave it to the states, and the states kind of choose how they want to use it. So, I mean, I think there's going to be some winners and losers there.
I think so. I mean, that's why that's why I'm fascinated by it. But it does get my thumbs up at least and go, okay, well, you took from one side, you're giving some back to the side. The math obviously doesn't balance, but at least you got something. And I think I'm interested in that one. That one's got me intrigued. The other one is not so much a policy, but it was something in a recent talk I had with Amy Gleason. She mentioned it again. The whole idea of a national provider directory, right? And how so it's not really a policy, but if it ever succeeds, if it ever gets there, that would solve a lot of problems and a lot of matching issues that we're having now. And it would just save the industry from having to do this, right? So I look at that and go, hey, if that can really work, that would be a really good thing for healthcare. So it's not so much a policy, but a project, if you will, that's being done by CMS. I've got my fingers crossed that one actually sees the light of day.
That would be a great one. I mean, you're 100% right. Like I always say that, like, why is fax so powerful? Fax is so powerful because 1, we know the fax number of every practice, and 2, it's a standard that they all understand. If CMS does the directory and we now have an address for every provider, every doctor in the system, well, now fax could be axed, right? Like, there's still issues, obviously, but and I don't think that fax is going to go away because there's some people that can't do TEFCA and QHINS and whatever. So you might have your fax number in the directory, right? Which that's fine too, right? Like at least you have a mode to communicate and connect with someone. That would be really powerful. So yeah, that's actually a really good choice. I like that one.
I had a good choice on the policy side. That's usually not my strong suit.
Colin's a policy nerd. Happy Health IT Valentine.
Yeah. People who know me know that I'm not a policy nerd at all. All right, John, let's get to the last question. This one's a fun one. And I'm going to be very interested to see who answers this question with us at HIMSS, because I think it'll be ranked up as some good answers. But John, if you had to pick a song that represents healthcare or health IT right now, what song would it be and why?
Well, if I were describing Colin and John's view of health IT and healthcare IT today's, which kind of fits our we love this stuff, is I would choose Taylor Swift "Love Story." We have a certain love story with health IT that Anyways, but that isn't the one I chose. The one I actually think fits, kind of where we're at right now is the song from Tim McGraw, "My Next 30 Years." Right? I don't know if you're familiar with the song, but he's like, "My next 30 years, they're going to be the best years of my life." And I kind of look at that and I say, that's kind of what I think where we're at in health IT, that the EHRs created this foundation that we're now going to have. I actually think it will happen in 10 years, not even the 30 years. So I can't even predict what 30 years is going to look like, but these next 10 years, even let alone 30, which 30 will be even more powerful, is going to be the best years of health IT with the things that are happening with AI, the reimbursement changes that could happen because of what, the data that's available and the way systems are able to run and get paid for rev cycle, the ability to automate so many things that doctors hate doing, nurses hate doing, patients hate doing. Like, I think it's going to be so powerful summarizing all of that data using AI so that it actually is more functional and useful, et cetera, right? I mean, I could go on. I mean, we do every episode of this, we cover health IT and the evolution. And I think the next 30 years are going to be the most interesting. The other part of the song that's interesting is he kind of goes in and says, well, how am I going to act differently in this next 30 years? And a lot of it's, I'm going to spend more time with my wife, and I'm going to, do things that are more fulfilling. And I would say that it describes our next 30 years, hopefully, as well, is that the AI and technology are going to take off some of the minutia that makes being a doctor really hard. The pajama time we've talked about a lot, right? Perfect example where it's like, hey, you are going to be able to spend more time with your family rather than, charting in your EHR. So I think, anyway, that's my song. The next 30 years are going to be even better than the last 30 years.
Wow, very optimistic, John, but very much in line with our our outlook, I think. Mine is a bit of a strange choice, but it's somewhat related to your choice. I picked "In the Air Tonight" by Phil Collins.
Okay.
A couple reasons. One, I mean, the lyric wise, I mean, he talks about, can you feel it? It's going to be coming in the air tonight. I mean, I have the same feeling about the next round of technologies, right? The next round of innovation, the next round of people coming into healthcare. We continue to see good people come into healthcare, smart people come into healthcare. So I think we're on, I won't say better days, but I think there's still hope for good days to come. And so going to conferences, that song echoes in my head because I can just feel the energy in the room, right? I can feel it, at the parties that we go to, feel it talking to some of these developers and product people, right? About some of the things that they're working on, entrepreneurs and so forth. So that's one reason why I picked that song. The other reason is that song has got a really slow build up to that big famous drum roll that, that everyone knows, right? The one from, the one that Phil Collins goes nuts on is from that movie, Hangover, right? It's in that. But, it's that slow buildup. Same thing in healthcare. We get the slow buildup of EHRs, like electronic data, AI, and it just kind of reaches a crescendo. And all of a sudden, I think it's we're going to be in a great place. The same way that now we look back and go, hey, man, like 30 years ago, we were on paper, like 95% paper healthcare. And in the last 20 years, we've switched that completely to electronic. We're 90 plus percent electronic now. So hopefully in the next 20 years, we'll look back and go, man, remember that beginning days of AI and all this automation and all this other stuff? Look at us now. So I choose Phil Collins, "In the Air Tonight." Plus, I'm just a Phil Collins fan, so it fits for me.
Colin, I don't know what it says, but and then to be fair, I'm really bad with names of songs, so I need to listen to it. Maybe I have heard it, but I don't know it well enough to comment on it. Now I have to listen and see if I agree. I did look up the lyrics, and that makes sense. I think what we learned about this song thing is that you and I are both optimists. I think that's what we learned the most from this song question.
I think so. I mean, I had it, going through this, I did have another song, but no one's going to know that one, so I didn't pick that one. But yeah,
I'm surprised you didn't go to, I mean, a lot of yours isn't lyric driven though, right? You're more of you like the sound and stuff, right?
Yeah, I'm into electronic music, so I mean that was one of the other songs I had, right? But it does have lyrics in that one. It's just it was I'll just say it. So it was "Digital Strangers" by a group called K391. And I just find it funny because we are pretty much digital strangers to each other in healthcare because healthcare doesn't really know who you are. It doesn't know each individual patient because we have no single patient ID. So I would have picked that one. That's a bit more pessimistic, but but I think we're at that stage right now in healthcare. So
yeah, that is interesting. Are we digital strangers? And you could take it another way, which is our culture is becoming digital strangers, where we're not interacting in human, but because we're on digital so much, we're strangers to each other. So, there's a
you can take it
whole
on many levels.
loneliness, wellness angle as well.
That's the beauty of this question. That's why I think if you're listening to this or if you're watching this right now, give us your thought of to what song healthcare is best represents healthcare at the moment. Put it in the comments below. It'll be fun to compare notes with everybody.
Well, and then Colin will put together the mixtape of everyone's comments.
That's right.
We're asking him at HIMSS.
I was thinking about bringing that back, John. I've had a couple of people mention they missed the mixtape. I maybe should do that next year, but yeah, we can make our own post-HIMSS mixtape. How about that?
Yeah, we'll do it with this question. That'll be good.
All right. Well, hey, listen, thank you for all of you for tuning into this episode of Healthcare IT Today. You can learn more about our program by checking out the programs page on healthcarenowradio.com. And please share your thoughts and your comments with the community at healthcareittoday.com and on social media using the hashtag HITSM. I'm Colin Hung, along with my friend and Health IT collaborator, John Lynn. Thanks for listening and have a great week.